Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, Staff Training and Research Institute of Distance Education, STRIDE, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Arts, Distance Education, MADE, First Year, MDE-411 Growth and Philosophy of Distance Education, Block 1, Basic Issues of Open and Distance Education, Unit 1, Understanding Open and Distance Education. 1.0 Objectives. After studying of this unit, you will be able to define open and distance education. Trace the features and scope of open and distance education. Differentiate face-to-face education and open and distance education. Identify different types of distance education institutions and recognize different vocabulary and instructions available at global level. 1.1 Introduction. In this unit we are going to study the basics of open and distance education. Here, we will explain the nature, scope, different meanings and definitions of open and distance education. Besides, you will also study why and how open and distance education is different from face-to-face education. It is otherwise called paradigm shift in education. This paradigm shift is because open and distance education is learner-centered education, whereas face-to-face education is a teacher-centered education. In the face-to-face situation, it is the teacher who teaches, whereas in open and distance learning, it is the institution that teaches. In fact, it can be called as institutionalized teaching and learning system at a distance. For both systems, the gamut is its learners, they are the real stakeholders of the system. In this unit, we will define open and distance education from various perspectives. This will enable you to generalize the relevance of open and distance education and contextualize it to your own experiences. An attempt has also been made to explain the differences between face-to-face and distance learning systems. The overall focus of this unit is to provide various conceptual inputs, both Western and Indian, to make ODL relevant to the context of developing countries. An attempt is also made to explain open and distance education based upon Indian experiences. 1.2 N Definitions of open and distance education. Before we define open and distance education, it will be useful to know about the first open university of the world, i.e., UK Open University and its mission. The underlying philosophy of the UKOU is reflected in the vision statement made by Lord Perry, the first Vice-Chancellor of the UK Open University. The Open University is open to people, places, methods and ideas. It promotes educational opportunity and social justice by providing high-quality university education to all who wish to realize their ambitions and fulfill their potential. This thinking has been followed in layer and spirit by most of the open universities across the world. Open learning is a popular term. The trends evolved in open learning system have their roots in distance learning. It is seen that distance learning institutions are gradually mostly converting themselves into open learning institutions. Here in this section, we shall discuss more about open learning. If you review the literature on open and distance learning, you will find several definitions of open learning. As the scope of this unit is to explain the basics of open and distance learning, we have selected a few key definitions that will help you to understand these terms. These are given below. Based upon your experiences as a distance educator, learner, you can choose the most suitable definition as per your own context and purpose. Derek Rountree defined open and distance learning in the following manner. Rountree, 1992. Open learning is a philosophy or a set of beliefs about teaching and learning, and distance learning is a method, or a set of techniques for teaching and learning. Open learning is an arrangement to enable a person to learn at the time, place and pace which satisfies their circumstances and requirements. The emphasis is on opening up opportunities by overcoming barriers that result from geographical isolation, personal or work commitments or conventional course structures which have often prevented people from gaining access to the training they need. According to Perto, 2000, the term open learning, with its ambiguities about the meaning of the term open, has led some of its protagonists to shy away from defining it, labeling it as a philosophy rather than a method. As such, usage is a pretext for its vagueness. Open learning was mentioned in one of the issues of the Pitman's Journal in 1929, long before the first open university in the world, UKOU, was established in 1969. Some other common definitions of open and distance learning are as follows. An open learning system is one in which the restrictions placed on students are under constant review and removed wherever possible. It incorporates the widest range of teaching strategies, in particular those using independent and individualized learning. Coffee, 1977. The family of instructional methods in which teaching behaviors are performed apart from learning behaviors, including those that in a contiguous situation would be performed in the learner's present, so that communication between the teacher and the learner must be facilitated by print, electronic, mechanical or other devices. Moore, 1973. A method of imparting knowledge, skills and attitudes which is rationalized by the application of division of labor and organizational principles as well as by the extensive use of technical media, specially for the purpose of reproducing high-quality teaching material which makes it possible to instruct great numbers of students at the same time wherever they live. It is an industrialized form of teaching and learning. Peters, 1973. A comprehensive UNESCO document entitled, Open Learning, describes open learning as follows. Such systems are designed to offer opportunities for part-time study, for learning at a distance and for innovations in the curriculum. They are intended to allow access to wider section of adult population, to enable students to compensate for lost opportunities in the past or to acquire new skills and qualifications for the future. Open learning systems aim to redress social or educational inequality and to offer opportunities not provided by conventional colleges or universities. Mackenzie, Postgate and Scuppam, 1975. Consist of various forms of teaching learning arrangements in which teachers and learners carry out their essential tasks and responsibilities apart from one another, communicating in a variety of ways. Its purposes are to provide learners with opportunity to continue learning in their own environments, and developing the capacity to carry on self-directed learning. Wedemeyer, 1977. The various forms of study at all levels which are not under continuous, immediate supervision of tutors present with their students in lecture rooms on the same premises, but which nevertheless benefit from the planning, guidance and tuition of a tutorial organization. Holmberg, 1981. Educational process in which a significant proportion of teaching is conducted by someone removed in space and or time from the learn. Perto, 1982. Subsequently Perto, 1997, Daffy Ned, Open Learning, as an organized educational activity, based on the use of teaching materials, in which constraints on study are minimized either in terms of access, or of time and place, pace, methods of study or any combination of these. Open learning is a term used to describe courses flexibly designed to meet individual requirements. It is often applied to provision which tries to remove barriers that prevent attendance at more traditional courses, but it also suggests a learner-centered philosophy. Lewis and Spencer, 1986. A wide range of learning opportunities that both aim to assist learners in gaining access to knowledge and skills they would otherwise be denied and to give learners the optimum degree of control over their own learning. Dixon, 1987. Open learning is a state of mind rather than a method with particular characteristics. Jack, 1988. Open learning is not just about access alone, it is also about providing people with a fair chance of success. Holt and Bonici, 1988. The above definitions will be useful in understanding open learning in general. Let us now elaborate distance education characteristics as specified by the Commonwealth of Learning, COL. These are as follows. Separation of teacher and learner in time or place, or in both time and place. Institutional accreditation, that is, learning is accredited or certified by some institution or agency. This type of learning is distinct from learning through your own effort without the official recognition of a learning institution. Use of mixed media courseware, including print, radio and television. Broadcasts, video and audio cassettes, computer-based learning and telecommunications. Courseware tends to be pre-tested and validated before use. Two-way communication allows learners and tutors to interact as distinguished from the passive receipt of broadcast signals. Communication can be synchronous or asynchronous. Possibility of face-to-face meetings for tutorials, learner-learner interaction, library study and laboratory or practice sessions, and use of industrialized processes, that is, in large-scale open and distance learning operations, labor is divided and tasks are assigned to various staff who works together in course development teams. The above definitions have been further simplified as, distance education is a method and open learning is a philosophy. It is always promoted that distance education is a mode. The mode refers to a transactional strategy of different method, or philosophy. When we look at all these definitions, it becomes clear that open learning incorporates removing the barriers and restrictions that are placed on learners as in the conventional education system. Open learning means opening up learning opportunities to a wider range of people and enabling them to learn more congenially and productively. One can justify open learning as a new career avenue for both teachers and new learners in the process of globalization, i.e. knowledge society. You are listening to this audiobook on Audio Learn IGNOU. 1.3 Features of Open and Distance Education. A study of the definitions will show you that there are some common broad features of open and distance education, which are as follows. No upper age limit. Qualify cation. Openness with regard to place and time of study. Flexibility in selection of courses. Credit accumulation and self-paced examination system. Use of educational technology and information communication technologies, ICT. Multiplier effect. Let us discuss the above features in detail. No upper age limit. In the open learning system, while there may be a minimum age required to take admission to a particular program, but there is no maximum age limit. For example, if a learner who passes senior secondary, 10+2, school examination in June 2011, she can take admission to a bachelor's degree program either in a conventional university or in an open learning university in the same year. However, the flexibility of the open learning system allows him/her, even after a gap of some years, to take admission to the bachelor's degree in any open learning university as per his choice. This is because there is no restriction on upper age and on the gap in his/her studies. Qualify cation. In the conventional system of education, the enrollment capacity is limited. As a result, there are restrictions in admissions, based upon the percentage of marks, grades obtained by the learners. In the open learning system, there is no such restriction for most of the programs. Only a few professional programs, e.g., computer, nursing, engineering, etc., may have some restrictions due to heavy hands-on work that learners need to undertake and for which prior knowledge is required. Openness with regard to place and time of study. In open learning system, the learner can select his/her own place of study. This means that geographical boundaries do not restrict admission and learning. In open learning, the learner can continue his/her education from any place of his/her choice under the jurisdiction of the Open University Institute. In this system, the learners also have the freedom to take even more than 1 year to complete a one-year program. This is because programs have a minimum and a maximum duration during which the learner remains registered in the program, and thus a learner can complete a program at his/her own pace. Flexibility in selection of courses. In the open learning system, the learner enjoys flexibility in selecting his/her courses. This means that the educational preferences of the open university are more towards learners' needs and requirements. It is broader in their perspective than the traditional conventional universities. Credit accumulation and self-paced examination system. Open and distance education systems offers learners the freedom to take examinations according to their own preparedness and mastery of the subject. Examinations are usually spread at different times of the year, and learners can register for examinations as per their own convenience and pace of learning. Further, ODL also offers the learners the facility of credit accumulation, as learners can spread their registration for examination over a specified minimum and maximum number of years. This is quite different from the conventional system where every learner has to pass all the requisite number of courses in a particular year. Use of educational technology and ICT. The essence of ODL is communication in all forms with the objective of reducing the distance between learning and teaching end. Educational technologies are almost an extended form of the distance education and open learning. The manipulation of education technology and ICT enables education anywhere and everywhere to be possible. The use of educational technology also enables multiplier effects of reaching out to a large numbers of learners in a cost-effective and efficient manner. The usage of ICT is said to be a practicing tool in education rather than a preaching tool. Multiplier effect. The synergetic effect of multiplier is always equated with the inbuilt strength of open and distance education. It has been understood that the Open University can multiply its sources of learning and its resources. In the early 60s, the concept of education was aimed at each one teach one, but over the years, it has been realized that even one person can teach many. The strength of open and distance education lies in its multiplier effect. This implies that the ODL system can be used effectively for reaching out to large numbers without diluting the content as well as maintaining cost effectiveness. This multiplier effect is most visible in teaching learning facilities for learners of ODL as well as training of trainers. In the spheres of training, it is said ODL has multiplier effects, i.e. one trainer can train 11 trainees. This implies that 11 can train 121, and these 121 trainers will multiply, and this process will go on multiplying. This was the main object with which the spoken English training program was undertaken by then Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, CIEFL, now renamed as English and Foreign Language University, EFLU, Hyderabad. This model has been replicated in other institutions. The advantage of ODL is that it allows increased interaction capability, naturally resulting in increased learning gains. The use of technology allows many user groups to share the network. It is also possible to organize specific video conferencing sessions for a separately identified group with different needs. All these advantages result in tremendous cost cutting in travel, logistics, and in repetition of teaching infrastructure. Another advantage of the multiplier effect is that it contributes to the repository of digital learning material, knowledge, and enhances the learning process of the learners of the institution. This approach is a dynamic concept to educate majority of learners. The multiplier effect allows the learning resources to be dispersed simultaneously among several geographically dispersed learners in minimal time. Also, the biggest advantage is the repetition of training courses, materials, and their updating and dissemination despite of the geographic diversity. Open and distance learning can be summed based upon above features as follows: accessibility is promise, flexibility is its commitment, and educational equity is the overall philosophical basis. 1.4 The paradigm shift in distance education. Thomas Kuhn's, the proponent of paradigm shift, denotes change as the only constant factor in all walks of life. Education is not an exception. Education is undergoing radical changes from time to time in its historical evolution. It is generally assumed that distance education is a paradigm shift from face-to-face education. With the emergence of media and ICT, there are again changes, paradigm shifts in the field of distance education and also within the distance education. According to Peters, 1999, paradigm shift in education would mean that certain models or patterns no longer exist as they have been substituted by new models and patterns which significantly differ from the old ones. Peters also opined that the traditional mode of distance education will probably become outdated. Distance education will have to reorient itself and develop new didactical structures. In this new situation, independent learning, self-regulated learning, and group learning will become very important. Prefabricated courses, as available now, for a very large number of students will lose their significance. The paradigm shift in distance education shows that the area of open and distance education is a fertile land for innovation, experimentation, and creativity. 1.5 Scope of open and distance education. The next issue that we would like to discuss is regarding the scope of distance education with respect to the openness of open learning. No learning system or program is ever fully open, nor is any system fully closed. Openness is an ideal for which an institution must keep striving so that the maximum number of learners can be benefited. Let us look at what a fully open system would look like. Some of the features would be as follows. You should be able to enroll for any program that you want. The program would be tailored to your objectives and at an acceptable cost. You would get it when you wanted it, where you wanted it, and would be able to work through it at your own pace. You would be able to set your own objectives, choose the content and sequence of your program, and decide when and how your learning will to be assessed. You would also be able to decide how you wanted to learn, e.g. with others or on your own, from books or from videos or online, with the emphasis on theory or on practice and on who might help you in what kind of ways. The open and distance learning institutions in the developing countries are passing through a typical transactional phase, where we witness of contradictions when we apply these theories of ODL. These contradictions, emerging because of the ODL system, is passing through a transitional phase whereby we often found self-contradictions in its operations. Thus you will see that all open learning, even on-site, involves some degree of distance learning. Many open learning systems do not involve much openness. Some learning systems that do not call themselves open are actually more open than some of those that do. 1.61 System. Many names, nomenclatures of open and distance learning. The terms always confuse which system is open and which system is closed and what system is open and distance education. Here we will discuss various terminologies available to explain open and distance education. In this context, broadly, one can say the system is one, but it is called by many names, depending upon context and convenience. Some of the prevailing vocabulary terms are external exams, private study, correspondence education, distributed learning, home study, self-directed, regulated learning, independent learning, didactic communication, programmed learning, proximate education, continuing and lifelong education, flexible learning, blended learning, virtual learning, online learning, etc. All these names directly or indirectly relate to open and distance learning, education. Let us study few of them to comprehend our understanding of these terms. 1.6.1 Correspondence education, home study and independent study. Correspondence education, home study and independent study are terms that denote distance learning methods that are well over a century old, based on standalone, self-study material, often print-based with communication through postal services or telephone, video and audio cassettes, electronic mail and television and radio broadcasts. This method of teaching learning is characterized by the fact that learners do not have to leave their homes to study. They have the facility to make use of a variety of means for tutor-learner contact. Many universities in India as well as other countries have renamed their correspondence programs to those of open and distance learning or independent study. 1.6.2 External studies. These terms refers to an organizational unit established within some institutions, charged with responsibility for establishing and maintaining distance education operations. External studies applies to instruction that takes place somewhere other than on a central campus, such as a classroom remote from campus, and includes a variety of delivery options like audio, video or computer conference or home study. Many universities and institutions, such as those in Australia, New Zealand and Namibia have centers for external studies that are responsible for open and distance learning programs. In the Indian situation, the external studies, one sitting and writing exam are treated as private study. Here the institution does not provide study material and support services, hence the system has not been recognized as open or distance education learning. This system is not vogue since it is not recognized at present. 1.6.3 Continuing education. The term continuing education usually applies to non-credit education, refers to courses that can be delivered on campus or at a distance, and has varied meanings. The University of Botswana, for example, has a distance education unit, which is part of the university's Center for Continuing Education. In the Indian situation, continuing education is an earliest and cheapest form of distance education which was popular in the name of correspondence continuing education. During the 12th World Conference of the International Council for Correspondence Education, ICCE, the council itself was renamed as the International Council for Distance Education, ICDE. Since then all correspondence institutions were renamed as distance education institutions or directorates of distance education. 1.6.4 Distance teaching. In the Indian situation, distance teaching institutions are mostly functioning as dual-mode institutions, where face-to-face and distance education systems are both available. Earlier such institutions taught mostly through print materials which was dominant mode of learning. Gradually the distance education institutions are also acquiring features of open learning with flexible and accessible patterns of education. 1.6.5 Self-instruction. The term self-instruction refers to a process in which materials take learners step by step through the instructional process. Self-assessment exercises help learners monitor their own progress and instruction can be print-based or computer-based. Many language teaching schools offer self-instructional packages that consist of print materials and audio cassettes. Computer-assisted and web-based learning are purely self-instructional. In the Indian situation, all the open and distance education institutions are treated as self-directed learning instructional systems wherein self-learning is possible with an appropriate media and methods in the curriculum design. Mostly print media dominates learning process. 1.6.6 Adult education. The term adult education emphasizes the principles of adult learning, often known as andragogy, as compared to pedagogy or child-centered learning. In the Indian situation, adult education programs have been aimed at not only making people literate but also creating awareness amongst the people about various social issues and encouraging participation in the functioning of democracy. 1.6.7 Technology-based or mediated education. This refers to systems of teaching and learning in which a technology other than print has a major role, and takes two major forms: standalone, for example, computer-assisted learning and computer-managed learning, and conference, for example, audio, video or computer. For example, the University of the West Indies used audio conferencing to link its various campuses and learning centers. Two of the postgraduate degrees available in open and distance learning, those offered by Athabasca University and the Open University of the United Kingdom, use computer conferencing as a primary mode of delivery. The University of Guyana, Institute of Distance and Continuing Education, uses audio teleconferencing, and the Open Learning Information Network, in Canada, delivers courses via the World Wide Web. In the Indian situation, technology in teaching learning process plays an important role to bring the efficiency in the teaching learning process, both in face-to-face and distance education. In distance education institutions, multiple technologies are being used. In India we find distance education with dominant print media, multiple media multimedia, both integrated and non-integrated. Online learning is also being practiced in most of the distance education institutions. The Indian situation may be compared to a typical situation where we find the bullock cart and aircraft moving together. We witness a blended approach as a teaching and learning tool. 1.6.8 Learner-centered education. In learner-centered education, integrity and freedom of the individual, learner, is primary. Therefore, the teaching and learning process provides flexible sequences of study, negotiated objectives and content, negotiated learning methods, negotiated methods of assessment, and a choice of support mechanisms. 1.6.9 Open and distance learning. This is a term adopted by institutions for a range of features through which access to educational opportunity can be extended to people who would otherwise be excluded. The term was intended to indicate that openness is dependent on much more than just delivering courses at a distance. The educational philosophy of open learning emphasizes giving learners choices about medium or media, whatever print, online, television or video. Place of study, whether at home, in the workplace or on campus. Pace of study, whether closely paced or unstructured. Support mechanisms, whether tutors on demand, audio conferences, or computer-assisted learning, and entry and exit points. Many institutions use the term open in their names. The Open University in the UK, Open Access College and Open Learning Institute of Charles Sturt University, both in Australia, Open Learning Information Network and the Open Learning Agency, both in Canada, Indira Gandhi National Open University in India, and the Open University of Sri Lanka. 1.6.10 Open Access. The term open access implies a lack of formal entry requirements, prerequisite credentials, and an entrance examination. 1.6.11 Flexible learning. The term fluid flexible learning emphasizes the creation of environments for learning that have the following characteristics: convergence of open and distance learning methods, media and classroom strategies. Learner-centered philosophy. Recognition of diversity in learning styles and learners' needs. Recognition of the importance of equity in curriculum and pedagogy. Use of a variety of learning resources and media, and fostering of lifelong learning habits and skills in learners and staff. 1.6.12 Distributed learning. The term distributed learning is a synonym for distance-delivered education. Emphasizes the learning itself rather than the type of technology used or the separation between teacher and learner. Makes learning possible beyond classrooms, and, when combined with classroom modes, becomes flexible learning. 1.6.13 Proximate education. This is again a new word in the area of distance education. This word was coined by National Academy of Legal Studies and Research, Nalsar, Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh to promote legal education through distance methods. The aim of such education is to minimize the gap between the learner and the education by using all the available technology for education, by which the education will be more proximate to the learner's needs. 1.6.14 Online learning. Till a few years ago, online education was unthinkable. Now it is a reality as the internet has expanded greatly. The internet has allowed us to cross boundaries that earlier took a long time to travel. Technology has allowed us to learn and grow with people from around the world. It has given access to new opportunities in learning and networking. We are now witnessing a transformation in the way people learn. Online learning and virtual learning has made learning possible for everyone, from anywhere, according to one's own space and pace of learning. Online education is defined as the creation and proliferation of the personal computer, the globalization of ideas and other human acts, and the use of technology in exchanging ideas and providing access to more people. Audio, video, computer, and networking technologies are often combined to create a multifaceted instructional delivery system. The fundamental method to unite the distance learning instructor with the distance learner is the network. Networks suitable for distance learning implementations include satellite, cable modem, digital subscriber lines, DSL, and wireless cable. Collins, 2002. Greenberg, 1998, defines contemporary distance learning as a planned teaching, learning experience that uses a wide spectrum of technologies to reach learners at a distance and is designed to encourage learner interaction and certification of learning. p. 36. 1.6.15 Virtual learning. The definition of a virtual learning environment emphasizes the importance of learning. Learners in a virtual environment are expected to make use of and include examples, observations, experiences, situations, rules, concepts and techniques in a continuous, e.g., day by day or week by week, permanent, i.e., committing knowledge into memory, fashion to improve the performance of the execution of tasks have an R. Pimentel, 1999, defines a virtual learning environment as follows. A virtual learning environment, VLE, is a set of teaching and learning tools designed to enhance a student's learning experience by including computers and the internet in the learning process. The principal components of a VLE package include curriculum mapping, breaking curriculum into sections that can be assigned and assessed, student tracking, online support for both teacher and student, electronic communication, email, threaded discussions, chat, web publishing, and internet links to outside curriculum resources. In general, VLE users are assigned either a teacher ID or a student ID. The teacher sees what a student sees, but the teacher has additional user rights to create or modify curriculum content and track student performance. There are a number of commercial VLE software packages available, including Blackboard, WebCT, Lotus Learning Space, and COSE. 1.6.16 Blended Learning. Blended learning has been defined as an organic integration of thoughtfully selected and complementary face-to-face and online approaches and technologies. Garrison and Vaughan, 2008, p.148. Further, it has been also defined as combination of face-to-face and online learning, Williams, 2002. A survey of a-learning activity by Arabaz, Boggs and Baker, 2003, found that 80% of higher education institutions, 93% of doctoral institutions offered hybrid and blended learning courses. Blended online learning environments include simultaneous and complementary integration and implementation of an asynchronous mode learning environment, e.g., a course management system or CMS, and a synchronous desktop conferencing environment, e.g., virtual classroom, Power, 2008. 1.7 Types of open and distance learning institutions. While understanding the institutional perspective of open and distance education, the broad categorization is under three heads, i.e., single mode, dual mode and consortium. The first two models, single and dual modes, are popular institution perspectives, and the third, consortium, is altogether different from the above two. Let us understand this different categorization and their operations. 1.7.1 Single mode institution. This single mode institutions, otherwise called dedicated distance education universities, are those that are specifically established to offer the courses and programs to students who are not able to pursue an education at a conventional on-campus university. Single mode institutions are exclusively dedicated for distance education institutions. These institutions and universities may be state-funded or run by private organizations. 1.7.2 Dual mode institution. This type of institution is called bimodal, an institution that offer learning opportunities in two modes, face-to-face and through ODL. Both modes have common examinations, but the types of learners are both on-campus and distance learners. This is a popular institutional strategy we witness in almost all the face-to-face institutions where distance education is also prevailing. 1.7.3 Consortium. This refers to arrangements involving a number of organizations in formal partnership, with joint collection of resources and sometimes as independent managing agents. For example, open and distance learning institutions that set up formal partnerships may involve co-production of elements of course, complete joint course production, joint learner enrollments, or cross-accreditations and credit transfer between and among the educational institutions. 1.8 Perceived differences between face-to-face education and open distance learning. We have discussed that the open and distance education is a paradigm shift when we compare it with face-to-face teaching and learning system. Once we accept this paradigm shift, we find there is a different language used in both systems. Let us compare the vocabulary in both face-to-face education and open and distance learning. They are broadly as follows. 1.8.1 Vocabulary in face-to-face, F2F, and ODL. Look at the screen. Learning at a distance demands different structural, functional, and operational issues. Given below, some of the perceived differences have been identified. This list is not exhaustive and exclusive, but it is only illustrative. These ideas provide a chance to discuss and deliberate on these issues related to face-to-face and distance learning. 1.8.2 Conceptual differences between face-to-face and open and distance learning. Look at the screen. 1.9 Open and distance education, the Indian experience. Open and distance education is evolving in the Indian context. Various experiments are made in this system, and policymakers' expectations are also high from open and distance education. Those are namely to increase gross enrollment ratio, in which 50% of enrollment of higher education is being expected from ODL system. Let us touch upon few Issues related to open and distance education in the Indian context as below. 1.9.1 Generation of distance educators in Indian context. In the Indian context, distance education is providing new career avenues. For the new learner, the learners are mostly from the second and third generation of education, but many are also first generation learners. They often face difficulty in handling skills such as reading, writing and reflecting their thoughts and experiences. As you may be aware, the roots of Indian education did not allow education for all. The need for education has been gradually recognized by all sections of society, and open and distance education has proved to be a powerful avenue for achieving this education for all. Before the establishment of open universities in India, there were no ODL models except that of distance education in dual-mode universities. The instructional models have been borrowed from the UK Open University and gradually customized to Indian needs and requirements. Sir John Daniel in his blog was of the view that each country should come out with their own country's context of theorization on open and distance education to generalize with their subjective experiences. Such attempts are more relevant to each country's context rather than blindly following Western theories and models. As you may be aware, the first open university in India was established in Hyderabad in 1982. This was followed by the Indira Gandhi National Open University that was set up in 1985. The apex body of the distance educational institutions, named Distance Education Council, DEC, is stationed within IGNOU. Today, 2012, there are around 14 open universities in India. Emergence of open universities in Indian context is a historical necessity created by the need for liberalization of higher education through cost-effective and efficient strategies. Such policies, particularly in the economic liberalization and globalization process, would strengthen democratic institutions. You have already discussed the nature and scope of open and distance education in the previous subunits. Distance education has become very popular in India, and many universities and institutions have initiated distance education centers for reaching out to the large number of learners. The strength of distance education in India is that it has been able to introduce flexible patterns of entry in education, and thereby making it possible to provide continuing education and lifelong education to all sections of society. Introduce credit system of education in India and give learners many chances to complete a program of study. Engage the learner through self-directed materials and reduce the distance and isolation of learners. Successfully manipulate multiple media baskets for teaching learning process, and also provide open learning resources. Provide and facilitate modular, semester-based studies. Utilization of spare resources from the host institution and their usage for open and distance education, which has ultimately created a national network of distance education centers. Introduce continuous assessment system in open and distance education through assignments. Successfully prove that the ODL is both cost-effective and benefits the system of education. The need for open learning in India, according to G. Ram Reddy, the founder of Open University System in India, is due to the fact that elitism in education and politics in democracy do not go together. He strongly felt that to strengthen the democratic institutions, the participation of people with education was a powerful instrument. Dealing at helm of affairs of higher education in the capacity as a vice-chancellor, he held a strong conviction that the future belongs to open and distance education. Open and distance education systems spread aggressively in the developing countries including India. Some of the open universities gained the status of mega universities. Mega universities is a term coined to designate those distance teaching institutions that have over 100,000 active students in degree-level courses. According to Sir John S. Daniel, 1996, a mega university combines three criteria: distance teaching, higher education, and size. IGNOU is categorized as one of the mega universities. Distance education has enabled the introduction of various types of courses and programs at higher education level, such as Appreciation Program, for profession and capacity building activities, Certificate, awareness courses, Diploma and PG, Diploma, extension courses, Degree programs, courses, both in general and professional levels, Master level programs, both in general and professional levels, Research degree programs, Network and collaboration under community colleges, different types of convergence schemes, and customizing its programs and courses for the industry and society. The conceptual base to understand operations of open and distance education in its gamut is broadly categorized as design, development, evolving appropriate delivery strategies, and learner and system evaluation. Among all these activities, the delivery is considered to be the important activity, which is otherwise called the gamut of open and distance education. The learner support service is considered to be the important element in the gamut of open and distance education. The best academic programs would fail if their delivery was not effective. The market approach to education is the emphasis on providing services. In the context of distance education, this may be seen as after-sales services. Based upon this assumption, is the thinking that those who provide effective services will be considered the best sellers in the market. Let us see the figure given below, which explains the gamut of open and distance education. Look at the screen. Figure 1.1, Gamut of Open and Distance Education. The gamut of distance education is explained in the above figure as course design, development, evolving an appropriate strategy for delivery or its transactional strategies, undertaking learners, course evaluation, program evaluation, and finally periodical undertaking of revision of course, program. These are the major activities of open and distance education. All the above activities have cyclic relations and chaining linkages, which one cannot detach from another. The overall emphasis and importance is given to learners in all activities. Hence it is said that the gamut of open and distance education is the gamut of its learner and their support services. You will be studying the above issues in detail in the course S416 of this program. 1.9.2 Some initiatives of Indian Open Universities. Open universities in India have taken initiatives that have influenced ODL. B.R. Ambedkar Open University, Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, declared 2003 as the Year of Student Service and developed a Learner's Charter. The most popular slogan of the university was, "University at your doorstep." This caption of the university denoted the will of the university to provide education at the doorstep of such learners, who wished to continue their education and upgrade their qualifications. This shows the importance given by BRAOU to its learners. The caption of the YC Maharashtra Open University, YCMOU, Gyana Ganga Garogari, refers to the importance of making knowledge and wisdom accessible to the doorsteps of every house. YCMOU's brochure, titled Liberating the Learner, aptly expresses the philosophy of distance education. IGNOU has evolved a diversified approach to student support services, with various kinds of models and arrangements. IGNOU is today reaching people and places hitherto unreached through its programs and courses. The university has succeeded in creating a wide network of regional centers, RCS, and study centers, SCs, across the length and breadth of the country. Besides systemic issues developments, IGNOU has also initiated innovations and experimentation in the following areas. Initiated community colleges under which associate degree is awarded. Expanded its collaboration and networking with various private-public partnerships. Evolved distance education program along with face-to-face education system as a convergence scheme. Proved its existence in the international sphere as an educational vendor. A first university initiated its learning resources under open learning resources for public use. A university with its concern for national and international requirement has established Sign Language Institute through the initiative of Ministry of Social Justice, Government of India. A university with huge infrastructure including extensive multimedia facilities to meet the educational needs for all. The only university in India which has highest networking with its diversified study centers and regional centers. All these efforts have resulted in IGNOU becoming a household name across the country. 1.9.3 Assumed model of open and distance education in India, dependency model. ODL borrows the best talent available from all the best resources without compromising quality programs for seamless education. The similar exercise made in the area of learners' support services. Most of the study centers in Indian distance institutions use human and physical resources from the host institutions and pay for the services rendered. This is known as dependency model. Venkaya, 1993, pp.53-58. In which administrative support is expected by coordinators in organizing face-to-face contact classes, examination and other student support services. In this model, experienced practitioners say that the host institutions are not extending the required cooperation to the study center coordinators, and periodic meeting between Open University and the principals, head of the host institutions may provide a good opportunity to sort out difficulties and create cooperative environment. The change in attitude of all the functionaries associated with the university on a part-time and full-time basis will help to realize the objectives of student support services. Venkaya, 1993. 1.9.4 Food for thought. Few ideas for debate and discussion with an open mind for the cause of open learning. Think. Open and distance education is more a mindset in its whole gamut. Equilibrium to be the 5RST distance learner in Indian context of distance education. The distance education is compared as ABIMANYU syndrome, where entry is easy and exit is difficult. In the face-to-face situation, it is the student who trouble the institutions, whereas in open and distance education the institution troubles the learners. Self-learning materials in open distance materials are subject to praise and criticism in public life. Face-to-face system uses distance education materials, but it rarely acknowledges. Distance education is a historical necessity in Indian situation. Think. Distance education is a new career opportunity in the globalization of education for both teachers and new learners. Open learning and closed mind do not go together. ODL promotes shameless borrowing of knowledge for seamless education. Communication is the essence of distance education. In the face-to-face system, teacher excellence is recognized, whereas in open and distance education, team excellence is recognized. Establishment of Open University have positively influenced many correspondence courses institutions of conventional universities to reform their teaching and delivery methodologies. Power 1989. Distance education is a more business-oriented form of education. Page 227. Rumble, G. 1986. The teacher working for open and distance education should have social concern and develop courses and programs. At the same time, their programs are market-wise viable for its economic reasons. And finally, she working for the cause of ODL should possess handling of technology. Teachers working for open and distance education need to be always be active to generate ideas. They also need to be proactive to develop the ideas into action. Also need to be process active for evolving and appropriate strategies to delivery mechanism of their programs, and finally they need to be post active to undertake system, program and their student evaluation. The teachers working for open and distance education can be compared to unacknowledged legislators of knowledge for the knowledge society. 1.10 Summary. Government of India has high expectations aimed at increasing gross enrollment ratio in higher education, particularly through open and distance learning. Over the last many years, the contribution of ODL for the knowledge world has been recognized. Open and distance education has played a major role in liberating knowledge and providing it to all sections of society through open educational resources. It is well known that many face-to-face education institutions and general public use open and distance education institution materials in their teaching learning. The dynamics of the success of open and distance learning lies in the team approach of the system. People working in different units and divisions work of an ODL should have effective coordination among the units and divisions, integrity of the people to acknowledge the knowledge and resources of others for seamless education, and commitment for the overall achievements of its goals of ODL. And finally, all this has to be supported by a statutory policy on open and distance learning which will give greater credibility to overall system of open distance learning. We hope that this unit would have given you a comprehensive understanding on basics of open and distance education, with which you will be in a position to further study of various theories of distance education in the forthcoming blocks of this course. Thank you. We will see you with the next chapter.